Now that we know about phase 2 and the foundation level and what's going to dictate along the 5 matrix, guys, let's start to talk about the ins and outs, or the rules that are going to make this as simple as possible to make sure we can succeed. Now, we know that this is starting to get very hard with the discipline, guys, but nothing worth it comes easy. So I'm going to run through the ins and outs so we can answer most of the frequently asked questions and we know exactly what we're doing, guys. So number 1, basic rules for carbohydrates, guys. We're going to keep our vegetable intake high. All right, so like we did in our 14-day nutrition boot camp, guys, sorry, the 10-day nutrition boot camp, over this next 14 days in the foundation, we want to keep those vegetables as high as possible. They're a free food, so eat as much as you can. Anything that's green, anything that looks like a tree, we are sweet with, start consuming it. You want to fill half your plate with it for at least 2 to 3 meals every single day. Get those vegetables in. With the carbohydrates, guys, when we're going to add them in, the most essential part for adding in our carbohydrates is going to be post-workout. All right, so we want to add our first meal of carbs post-workout, immediately after, all right? After we've trained, our body has basically used glycogen for an energy source, and we're in a sponge-like position. So what we want to do is, while we're in that sponge-like position, is we want to get those carbs in so they can be absorbed as fast as possible and bring that body back up to homeostasis. So the ideal time to eat your carb meal is post-workout. So the bulk of this nutrient timing, guys, is going to be based around our workout times. So the pit tip, and I touched on this in the first, when we're talking about the matrix, guys, is you must earn your carbs. All right, on non-training days, our carb load is going to drop. If you're not training with intensity, the carb load is going to drop. So the harder you train, the more frequently you train, the more carbs that you're going to earn. So you must earn the right to be able to eat these. They are not an essential nutrient. Your body can do without them, but when we are using them properly for fuel, they are a brilliant source. So we need to make sure that we need those for a fuel source by burning it in the gym. Consuming carbs before training is not necessary, guys. So like I said, the optimal time is post-workout. For some of the protocols, you know, there's going to be other carb meals throughout the day. Now, before workouts generally aren't ideal, all right? A lot of the times, what it'll do is it'll actually slow you down. Depending on how your body can tolerate carbohydrates. Some people do really well with them, some people don't do so well with them, so it's not a necessity to have them beforehand. So don't get caught up with, you know, smacking down your carb meal before you train thinking that's where you're going to get the energy from. Generally it's vice versa. You're not going, it's around the wrong way. You're going to have less energy because your body's going to be trying to break those down while you're training. So guys, don't get caught up with having your carbs before your workout thinking that that's where you're going to get an energy source from. So rules for fats. No fats with our carbs. So where possible, guys, when we are having our carb meal, we want to separate it from our fat meal. So for example, if you're having carbs post-workout, we don't want to have any fats in that workout, or you want to try in that meal, or you want to try and minimize the amount of fats that are in that meal with the carbohydrates. Obviously, you know, if you're having a meat source, it's going to be very hard to go zero fat, but we want to go either protein and carbs or protein and fats. Now, the reason behind this is when we do eat our carb meal, it's going to have a spike in insulin. Now, insulin is generally a storage hormone, and carbs are fast acting and fats are slow digesting sort of thing. So while that insulin is present, if we're storing and we have fats in the system, then you know you can kind of make the correlation of what's going to happen there. So where possible, separate our carbs and our fats. Rules for protein. Rotate your protein portions, guys, or your protein options. So you don't want to be eating steak, or eggs. We need to make variations throughout the days or day in, day out, all right? Different proteins have a different amino acid profiles, and they'll require different things to digest them. So if we're constantly smacking in the same source, then your body's not going to get the most out of it. So we need to get an array of amino acids and make sure our body's able to break that down. Choose free range where you can, guys, with your meat and protein source or egg sources. Choose free range. Now, essentially, what your meat source has eaten is what you're going to eat. So generally, the free range are in a less stressful environment. They've got better nutrients actually in the meat. It's going to be a better source of protein. So where possible, choose the free range option. Rules for everything else: recommended organic food, so coffees, berries, butters, nuts. If you can, go organic. Now guys, a lot of the time it might be a little bit more expensive, but organic ranges are generally more nutrient dense, so especially vegetables and nuts and butters and things like that, guys. You're going to get more nutrient density in the organic range, because once again they are farmed a lot better and are a better source of nutrients. So you might not get as much for your money, but you're going to get fuller faster anyway. So where you can, hit the organic source. And eat more protein. Again guys, you're going to hear us say this 1,000,001 times. We need to be eating protein to get the gains. So we want to try and eat every 3 to 4 hours where possible to make sure that body's in an anabolic position. All right. Next one guys is no food before bed. Now if we can, we want to try and give ourselves, you know, a 2-hour window between our last meal and when we lay down and go to bed. All right, so we want to make sure we can maximize everything, make sure the digestion process has already started, and put ourselves in that best position to sleep effectively. Now guys, in saying that, sleep is going to overrule this. So if you get home at 10 o'clock and are having dinner, then don't sit up till 12 o'clock purely to wait to let your food digest. You know, make sure you're getting that sleep in, but where possible, you know, use your brains with this. Try and have a couple of hours food free, any sort of liquids that have either calories or alcohols or sugars or anything like that. Want to try and avoid them before bed. Water's going to be fine to get everything sort of flushing through, so make sure we stick with that where possible, but don't go crazy at it. Like I said, no need to push your bedtime back 2 hours just to have a little bit of a fast before bed. And the last one guys, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail, is this is introducing a lifestyle day. So what our lifestyle day is now, look, don't get this confused with a cheat meal or a cheat day where you just go and eat whatever you want and whenever you want. What our lifestyle day is, it's what allows us to have that balance. And this is exactly what the foundation phase is about, is teaching you guys how to have balance and how to have a healthy relationship with food, fit in those social events while still getting results. Now generally with our lifestyle day guys, it's 1 day a week where we allow ourselves to relax the strings a little bit. Now what that means is we want to, you know, stick to that sort of 80% good food and 20% not so flash food. So, you know, where we might go out for breakfast and have pancakes rather than, you know, the eggs. Or you might go and have wine and a cheese platter with your friends, all right? But the rest of the day, we're still eating fine. So for example, if you want to go out and have a beer and watch watch your footy and have a schnitzel, then your breakfast and your lunch, guys, are still going to be on point. And then we're going to get that 20% of flexibility for that meal. Or if you want to spread it out across the day, you need to make sure that 80% of each meal is good, where that 20% we get that flexible. So it might mean, you know, having a coffee date, going out for lunch but still making a good choice, and then at dinner, you know, we might be able to have our steak and veg, but then have a dessert and relax the strings a little bit there. So it's an 80-20 rule. Either 80% of the day is good and one meal, so 20% is not real flash, or 80% of each meal is good and 20% is not real flash. But it does not mean you can go out and eat whatever you want, guys. We still need to make sure that we're reining it in. We're still sort of in around the nutrient intake that we need to be. So guys, if you can stick to those rules, those regulations, and those tips and guidelines, you're going to survive the foundation phase with flying colours.